Every year, on the 14th of May, Israel celebrates its Independence Day. But just one day later, on May 15th, Palestinians around the world mark the Nakba, which means the catastrophe.
Victorious Haganah troops have driven the Arabs out of the beleaguered city.
The Nakba refers to the mass expulsion of Palestinians from their homeland between 1947 and 1949 to make way for the creation of Israel. Nearly 3/4 of the native population were forcibly displaced, and more than 500 villages were destroyed. Generations lost their ancient homes, their land, and their way of life. To understand the Nakba, we must go back decades earlier, to the rise of Zionism in Europe. In the late 19th century, Jewish communities across Europe faced violent anti-Semitism, leading some to see a solution in the creation of a separate Jewish state. In 1897, Austro-Hungarian journalist Theodor Herzl convened the first Zionist Congress. He believed that Jews needed a homeland, and saw Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire, as the ideal location. However, there was a problem. Palestine was not empty. It was already home to an indigenous population, a majority of whom were Arab Muslims and Christians. Despite this, Zionist leaders saw Jewish colonization of Palestine as a necessary step. Their goal was to establish a Jewish majority by any means necessary. During the First World War, the British Empire made a fateful promise. In 1917, the British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour issued a declaration supporting the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. This declaration made no serious commitment to the rights of the native Palestinian Muslims and Christians, who made up over 90% of the population. After the war, Britain took control of Palestine under a League of Nations mandate, and the Zionist project accelerated under its watch. As Jewish immigration to Palestine increased due to the upswing in anti-Semitic violence in Europe, epitomized by the Holocaust, so did tensions. To further the Zionist cause and its territorial control, Zionist militias were formed, including the Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi. These groups were heavily armed and trained. While some were framed as defense forces, they carried out attacks on Palestinian communities and British soldiers alike, including in acts of terrorism. By the mid-1940s, Zionist militias had grown into a coordinated military network, laying the groundwork for what would become the Israeli army. In 1946, the militant group Irgun bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people, one of the deadliest attacks during the British Mandate. By 1947, Britain announced it would withdraw from Palestine. The newly formed United Nations proposed a partition plan, giving 56% of the land to a Jewish state, even though Jews owned just 7% of it and were still a minority. The Palestinian population rejected the plan, seeing it as deeply unjust. Fighting broke out, and the Zionist militias launched coordinated campaigns to seize territory. Between 1947 and 1949, entire Palestinian towns and villages were attacked, looted, and emptied, with families being massacred or forced to flee. Their homes were taken, but their keys were kept as symbols of return. This mass expulsion became known as the Nakba. The Nakba didn't end in 1948. Since then, Palestinian displacement and oppression has continued through military occupation, siege, settlement expansion, and apartheid policies. In Gaza today, over 70% of the population are refugees, the descendants of those driven out during the Nakba. And now, many fear a second Nakba is unfolding in real time. Entire cities in Gaza have been flattened, with tens of thousands killed, most of whom are civilians. Hundreds of thousands have been forced to flee, not once, but multiple times. The same pattern of erasure continues, with the same goal: to make the Palestinian presence vanish. Understanding the Nakba is essential to understanding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is not just a historic event, it is a lived reality. It shapes Palestinian identity, resistance, and the demand for justice. To this day, millions of Palestinian refugees are denied the right to return, and their villages remained wiped from the map. But their memory and their struggle endures. The Nakba is not over, but neither is the hope for return, dignity, and freedom.